It was barely 10 o'clock, but the streets were deserted. Why? It was cold, drizzling, and windy. The streets were mostly deserted as people in this part of the town went home early, and most of the doors belonged to business places that had been closed hours ago. Describe the appearance of the policeman. What was he doing? He was a fine-looking man, with physically strong form and a confident walk. He was patrolling to guard the peace. Who was the man standing at the doorway of the store waiting for? What story did he tell the policeman? The man standing at the doorway of the store was waiting for a friend. He told the cop the story of his friend, with whom he promised to meet at this spot 20 years later. Why had the two friends not been in touch in the last 20 years? The two friends had not been in touch as Bob went away to work in the West to make his fortune while Jimmy Wells stayed in New York. Though they corresponded initially, but Bob moved around too often and lost touch with Jimmy. Bob had prospered in life. How do you know? Bob was wearing a necktie with a large jewel, and he also had a fine watch which covered with small jewels. This tells us that he had prospered in life. Did Bob notice any change in his friend, Jimmy? Bob noticed that Jimmy was taller than the last time they had met 20 years ago, and he seemed to have a differently shaped nose as well. How did Bob realize that the tall man was not Jimmy? Bob realized that the tall man he was talking to was not Jimmy as he noticed that the shape of the man's nose was different from the one that his friend Jimmy had. What was the real identity of the tall man in the overcoat? Why had he gone there? Who had sent him there? The tall man in the overcoat was a policeman. Jimmy had sent him in his place because he realized that Bob was a criminal wanted by the Chicago police. But out of a sense of affection for his friend, he couldn't bring himself to be the one to arrest him, so he sent the tall officer in his place. On what offense was Bob arrested? The story doesn't explicitly state the crime committed by Bob. But the author hints that he was unnaturally wealthy by drawing attention to the jewel in his necktie and the jewels decorating his watch. All of these flashy, material possessions suggest that he probably made his wealth through unlawful ways. Justify the title of the story, After 20 Years. The two friends had been out of touch for 20 years, and the story is about them meeting again 20 years later. The title works not only at a literal level but also emphasizes the gap that now exists between the two friends and the universal theme of time passing.